Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to everybody, and hope you had an insightful day yesterday and are back excited as the same for day two. We have some really great sessions planned. So, Anshul, do we already start? All right. So before we move on with the first session, I think Samir and I really wanted to talk about, and this is a special talk, but this is something that we prepared to go over as you being our key audience, lawyers, law firms, people who predicated, their success is predicated on the digital reputations that they hold. So we would like to go over a few aspects of digital reputation and how do you build, monitor, repair, and mitigate risk. So that is what exactly the session is about today. But before that, I'd just like to go back and introduce myself. So my name is Aashna Duggal, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Girlpa Talk. And I'm also the Director of Legal and Research at a sister company, Blue Ocean Global Technology, which is headquartered in the United States. With respect to what we do, Samir and I are hired by bar associations across United States, and we deliver CLEs on a varied list of subjects. It encompasses digital reputation, how do you repair a reputation, AI and legal research being one of our most recent ones for the New York State Bar Association. And in addition to that, we love networking, and we cherish relationships. And so you'll find Samir and I networking and being at these conferences, speaking. But yeah, I think over to you, Samir, to...
First off, welcome everyone. I think that we're going to keep this session brief. I think going back to my favorite subject, Abraham Lincoln, better to be thought a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt. So for better or worse, I've spoken and given presentations and helped clients for an entire day on this subject. So first, let's just quickly comment on your digital reputation. Your entire life opportunity set is predicated on what people find when they read about you. And so I do a lot of work with, how many people here are familiar with family offices? I do a lot of work with family offices, and oftentimes they say, well, I want to be anonymous on the internet. And as Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, aptly put it, identity will be the most valuable commodity for citizens of the future, and it will exist primarily online. And if you don't control the conversation about who you are on the internet, then ultimately somebody else is controlling that for you. I also find, because I work, and we work with a wide range of attorneys. I mean, we work with top AmLaw, top 5 by revenue in the world. We work with many boutiques, but our business is actually helping many of their clients. And many times, lawyers will say, you know, I don't really need that because I get all my business from referrals. But the reality of it is that even if your best client tells somebody else about you, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go to Google and they're going to read about you. So how do you take the trust, goodwill, relationship capital that you have in real life with your friends, family, clients, investors, and partners, and how do you represent that with authenticity online? That's essentially what your digital reputation is. So we build, monitor, repair digital reputations. We're also expert witnesses in a wide range of court cases to quantify damages related to mergers and acquisitions, intellectual property, and internet defamation. So with that being said, I think Aashna can just prompt me and ask me some of the points, and I will do a tell-all on some of the things that are maybe relevant and interesting. And as I usually strive for, we'll keep to have a small percentage of people on their phones, because this is one of those presentations that can change the course of your life if you apply what we're talking about.
And I'm in a good position today, and you ask me why, because I've done this presentation a lot of times. I've delivered it across United States, Europe, Middle East, and so now that I have my colleague Samir here, I think it's the best way to have him add value to what we're saying. So I'm gonna just be a moderator here and prompt questions. And to put you in the spotlight, Samir, um, why don't you tell us how have you really helped law firms build a favorable reputation online? What are the aspects?
Well, first and foremost, I think what you were saying, Aashna, is you really don't have to do any work because I'm here, but that's okay. One is there's choice overload with respect to the internet. So the most rational justification is if you think about how much time you spend on the internet. How many people cringe a little bit when that like monthly thing pops up on their iPhone and it says how much time you've been spending on screen time? I know I'm one of those people that's like, you know what, actually YouTube, I was running for most of that time, so that doesn't really count. I wasn't really on the screen time. But if you think about how much of our lives we spend on the internet, and then you think about how much of a resource allocation and time you spend to letting people know about you. For instance, you're sitting here at this conference. How do you curate a narrative? One, that can foster trust when people learn about you. And then how do you create a narrative that can bring the exact people you're looking to work with? Okay?
And on that note, Samir, why don't you tell us about that one time Trump asked you to be his expert?
How many people are familiar with what's called a Daubert motion? In the United States, when you're hired to be an expert, and it's a compliment, and they say you're not good enough because they don't really want to deal with you, they file a Daubert motion. So I told an attorney, William Cheslovsky in Chicago, that I was approached by Donald Trump's team. And he called me one day and he said, Samir, you better not have been lying to me, because there's a Daubert motion for one of the cases that I was handling for him related to the Chicago public schools. And yes, in 2023 of November, how many people are familiar with Donald Trump's Jean Carroll case in New York, the defamation case? That's when Trump was sued for defamation by Jean Carroll, and she actually lost. Well, when I was ironically for my new friends in Indonesia, when I was in Bali in November of 2023, I got a call from Trump's legal team who asked me to be the expert witness on the Jean Carroll case. And they said, Samir, we've done our due diligence. You're somebody that can defend against the Jean Carroll expert witness case. And so Trump's team asked me to do about 4 months of work in 10 days. And they said, here's a blank check. So what is that line? Some people are so poor, all they have is money, and some are so rich, all they have is time. So I wasn't able to accept the Donald Trump case, and I respectfully declined because I said, in order to do 3 months of work, I probably need at least a month. Otherwise, 10 days would be setting ourselves up. Having said that, that is something that is entirely relevant. How many people know somebody, a company or individual that's had something negative on the internet that's harmed them? Yeah, I see a lot of nods. That can be catastrophic for your individual reputation and opportunity. So imagine if somebody with the same name as you was convicted of fraud. I remember somebody was referred to us not long ago, and they said, Samir, I never realized it, but every time I'm in a business deal, many times people are saying, oh, what's going on with that tax thing? It turned out this guy, Ray, who's based in Las Vegas, whenever you'd look him up, there was a guy with the same name who was convicted of tax fraud. And that guy's name would show, and then there'd be articles about it, and people would kind of hint at it. And he was like, I had no idea that they were actually kind of trying to question me if that was the case. So addressing false, defamative, erroneous content online is certainly something that you can inoculate against by building a positive presence. That doesn't mean that you have to have an influencer's profile and you have to post every day on LinkedIn, but it does mean that you should create digital assets.
And when we're talking about internet, Samir, you're telling us creating a lot of digital assets is what helps us rank better and, of course, show up as favorable and maybe the best choice for someone looking to maybe hire an attorney. But how do you overlook the fact that internet is a double-edged sword, and there've been cases that we've handled and ORM campaigns that we ran for law firms and lawyers and other businesses where people were just not happy with the lawyer's representation or the verdict, and just went online and decided to defame a lawyer. What do you think about that?
Anybody ever had an issue with people leaving negative reviews for them or somebody else? I see a couple not, it's not one of those things you want to raise your hand and be like, yeah, I've got that negative review. Those are also real. I mean, the internet is wonderful. I mean, we got, unfiltered access to information. But what about somebody going out and leaving harmful reviews? It could be a competitor. Or one of the challenges I know lawyers face all the time is you do a good job for your clients, and for whatever reason, you don't get the result. It could be entirely out of your hands. But somebody goes online and has an axe to grind and puts that out there. So ensuring that you have a process for representing the positive work that you do with clients. And whenever I have a conversation like this where we're sharing information, I just try to have the abundance mentality and provide as many. So how many people here are on LinkedIn? Most people, yeah. How many people have recommendations on their profile on LinkedIn? Right? So I'm not going to be somebody that, I'm not saying this out of hubris or try to aggrandize myself, but one of the things that I oftentimes forget is when people Google me, they go to my LinkedIn profile, I've had people that have reached out to me and said, send me a retainer. I want to work with you. I was given 3-4 names. I went through the fact that you have, 100 plus reviews and references on your personal LinkedIn profile. So those assets can work for you when you're sleeping, when you're on a flight to Dubai, when you're with your family and friends. One of the subjects, because I know that having worked with law firms and lawyers all over the world, and also entrepreneurs, is this whole realm of digital advertising is confusing. Now, I'm a former investment banker. I'm an accident in this business. So I come at it from this perspective of somebody who doesn't actually know this and started off from ground zero. So just to think about how you look at the internet, one is paid advertising, right? And when you do paid advertising, for instance, on Google, you showed up in those sponsored slots. And many people just think, oh, digital marketing, like there are a number of firms and clients I've worked with, and they've got teams of 2-3 people, and all they're doing is clicking a button and spending money. The other component to digital advertising, paid money, is organically ranking. And that relates to that dirty word called search engine optimization. Whenever you hear that word, people kind of, whenever I'm in front of like a room full of like 2,000 CEOs, I say, how many people feel like SEO is kind of a dirty word? Like people always raise their hand and they say, yeah, exactly, because nobody understands it. But ranking organically for the exact words that either your competitors are gaining traffic or running ads on, or when you search that question. Let's just say I met a gentleman yesterday who is very intelligent. We were having a conversation about litigation funding because I've worked on several cases when they've been allocated. And I explained to him, I said, when somebody types in and wants to know more about litigation funding, what it is, how do you appear in those questions? Like when you type into Google, some of those questions filter in. Those are the digital real estate that as a business owner and as an individual that you want to take over. So as you can see, I can probably, talk you guys into a pre-lunch sleep about this subject. But those are some of the things I'd be thinking about, regardless of whether you're an attorney, a law firm, etc.
But on that note, I can think of this other case that we dealt with back in 2022. Adam's case, do you remember him? Now, this guy is an attorney in Florida, and he was defamed mercilessly by someone he was representing again. So this guy was basically defamed for doing his job. So,
well, just a brief summary. I've got all the attorney nightmare situations. So this is a prominent attorney in Miami who represents boat manufacturers, yacht manufacturers, so private private boats and luxury yachts. So he is representing 3 different clients that dealt with a contractor who was hired to do work, the same contractor, who didn't perform the work for millions of dollars and absconded with the money. So for 3 different clients, he took down payments, started the work, took more money, and then disappeared. So he goes and sues this particular gentleman, okay? Now this particular gentleman didn't like that. So this guy went on the internet and attacked him and created an entirely false narrative that this attorney is a fraudster, has embezzled money. But let me guess, he took it a step further. His wife, Adam's wife, we'll just call her Anna, was a senior executive at Johnson & Johnson. And he went and found out who Anna was and created and put out articles and as many references as he could that Anna is a prostitute. So much so that Anna's bosses called her into a meeting and said, we have a real problem. Like, people have reported to HR that it looks like you have a second job. And she's like, that's entirely false. So the defamation was so harmful, he had to drop being the lawyer in those 3 cases and hire us to assess the impact on his personal, professional life. And he was somebody who had nothing out there online, so all the negative defined him. And I don't want to always go and say, okay, hey, look, here's the downside. But I'm just bringing to you the realities of if you don't have a strong digital presence, then when somebody does take action, that can come from anywhere. But that's Adam's case. We better hurry up because we want to move to the next session.
Yeah.
These guys are tired of me.
Already?
I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, moving towards the last segment, we've heard a lot about how harmful reputations could jeopardize your credibility as an attorney. And there's always 2 sides to a spectrum.
Yeah.
One of it is, oh, you have a favorable presence and you attract clients, you represent who you truly are, and that's how you align with people. But there's the other end, which says if you have an unfavorable narrative about you out there, people would never want to hire you. So what do you think about that? And how do you think about getting out of a crisis?
Well, that's an expansive question. I'll just give one of the most, so in addition to Blue Ocean Global Technology, I'm also co-founder of a company called Girl Power Talk that Aashna serves as our chief legal officer. And we employ women in 40 different countries. And so I'm very sensitive to issues related to Me Too. Now think about this situation. There's an attorney, a Silicon Valley attorney, who was an M&A attorney and actually one of the attorneys on SoftBank's, one of their funds. And he had a partner at his law firm, which is a top 10 by revenue in the world, who falsely accused him of a Me Too crime. Now, I say falsely accused. How do you know that, Samir? Well, she was overbilling a client. So when you sign up for a retainer with a law firm, oftentimes there's a cap. So the cap was $200,000. After month 2, she's already at $200,000. And he's like, you have to stop. That's the cap. Month 3, she's at $400,000. Month 4, she's at $500,000. And he's like, I have to report you to the leadership here. Like, you've literally gone 4 times over the cap. So she reports him for sexually assaulting her. Completely false. They bring him in a room. This guy's, billing $3,000 an hour for his work, and they say, you need to resign. Then they hire another law firm, Gibson Dunn, to do an independent investigation that exonerates him and finds that on the day she was sexually assaulted, the day after, she's asking to switch her flight to sit next to him. All sorts of interesting dramatics, like she was, taking drugs in the office, all sorts of. But this poor guy, my client, who's become a very good friend, and he has 88 of the first 90 links are negative, saying that he sexually assaulted this woman. He can't get a job. he has to start his own firm. So the situations, including those related to an individual, as I mentioned, or your company. The last component I'll make about digital presence is one of the most overlooked aspects if you are a decision maker in a business or own a company is to understand the alternatives and what are the digital forensics of your closest competitor. So I'll give you an example. If you've got 5 different competitors that are alternatives to you, and maybe you're friendly with them, and maybe it doesn't always have to be, it doesn't always have to be confrontational like that. But if you look at those 5, where are they getting the most traffic? What are the keywords they're ranking for? What is the money that they're spending? And what are the executive roles? Because oftentimes, when somebody's considering you or your company, they're looking at those alternatives. And people make decisions based upon, fair or not, what they read online. For instance, I was just last night, I had a call for a celebrity type situation where there's a business dispute gone wrong. And I already signed this NDA. So I had a call around 3 o'clock Dubai time. Now I happen to be up because I'm working on US hours. And the attorney immediately said, there was an attorney, it was a woman actually, and she said, Samir, I was given the names of 3 experts by our team, and this case is really sensitive and important, and I think you might be the best because I went on YouTube and I saw some things you've done, but before we get into any of the case stuff, and I'm just telling you that I likely want to hire you, I want to ask you about girl power talk. And I'm like, really, what? And she said, well, look, I went to Yale Law School. I'm somebody who's at the top of my profession, and I always said I would do good in the world and I would give back. And then I have to find somebody like you, a man for that matter, who's supporting. And so she goes, maybe if, and now I do think you're the most qualified, but maybe if through our collaboration I can help women as well, then this would be something wonderful. So if you think about that, that's because she read about that online. She was able to see that was legitimate. And that was a tailwind. So anyways, life's all about relationships. I came here to support this conference and my friend Azam because I am passionate about building relationships. And one conversation and one new friend can change the course of your life. I try to be that. I'm happy to speak with any of you. I'm an open book on digital reputation and presence and investing in those things. And I'm happy to share anything and everything. And I wish all of you a wonderful second day of the conference. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us up here.
Next. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Samir and Aashna. Now I request Mr. Azam Ghani, founder and director of World's Lawyer Forum and IIPLA, to honor our speakers.
Yeah, this is you, man. We respect you a lot.
Let's make sure we're in front of this. A better picture than what. Thank you so much.
And this one for Aashna. So this is the updated agenda.